Social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and even texting, plays a huge role in the lives of teens today. If not managed with maturity and proper boundaries, these social mediums can create many problems for teens. We have here today Mr. Chris Seufert, the Assistant Prosecuting Attorney for Platte County. Teachers, as Mr. Seufert and I discuss this topic, encourage your students to write down questions they might have, and we'll ask that you email them in to the Channel 18 email address. Thank you for coming in today.
Sure.
And our first question that we have is, what types of situations do you see with people getting into trouble using the social media?
We basically see three situations. The first is enticement type situations. Second would be bullying or harassment. And the third would be inappropriate pictures. And by enticement, I mean this is a situation where an underage person meets somebody online, they start to communicate with them, eventually that other person turns the conversation sexual, and then they try to set up a time to meet. For the bullying, that's pretty obvious. It's using social media, Facebook, Twitter, email, text, things like that to try to instill fear, intimidation, or emotional distress. And then the last is the inappropriate pictures. That can include pictures that include nudity. It can also be things like videotapes of fights or alcohol abuse, drug use, things like that.
Okay. And then what type of repercussions are there for teens that participate in these activities?
With the enticement, of course, that's the problem is the person you're communicating with, you have no idea who they really are. The internet allows people to be anonymous, and the person whose profile says that he's a 22-year-old college student could actually be a 52-year-old sex offender. We had a case recently in Platte County where a defendant came into Platte County thinking that he was going to meet a 14-year-old girl, and fortunately, he hadn't been communicating with a 14-year-old girl. He'd been communicating with Platte County Sheriff's detectives, and when he showed up, they arrested him, and they found a 12-inch lead pipe that he brought with him. Now, as it turned out, of course, the detectives arrested him without incident, but who knows what he would have done if that had actually been a 14-year-old girl that he was meeting. In the bullying context, for the person who bullies, there are consequences, including criminal consequences. It is a crime to harass somebody in the state of Missouri. And for the victim, the consequences can be literally life or death. You may have heard about the case in St. Louis where an adult woman set up a Facebook account. She started an online relationship with a teenage girl, and eventually she broke up with the girl online, said something along the lines of, "The world would be a better place without you." And that teenager committed suicide. So the consequences in the bullying context can be very, very serious. And then for inappropriate pictures, of course, if those pictures contain sexually explicit material, the consequences, again, there are criminal consequences for that. That includes, whether it's distribution of child pornography or the creation of child pornography. Those are both Class B felonies in the state of Missouri. They include substantial prison time. And they can also include being required to register as a sex offender for the rest of your life. And other than that, those inappropriate pictures, once they're created, you really lose control of them. Those pictures, even if you say, well, it'll be on my phone, nobody else will see it, people lose their phone. And if somebody comes along and finds that phone, those images can be on the internet in a matter of minutes, and they can be around the world in a matter of days. And it's not just those sexual pictures, even pictures of inappropriate behavior like drug or alcohol use, things like that. Employers and college admissions officers check Facebook. They Google their applicants. And those pictures, once they're on the internet, they're very, very hard to get off the internet. And so those can have long-term consequences also.
Understandable. If someone has been a recipient of bullying or harassment through social media such as Facebook or Twitter or even texting, what should he or she do?
I think the first impulse for a lot of people, if they get a harassing text or if they get an anonymous picture that maybe has some inappropriate material, is to delete it. That's actually the last thing you should do. Those pictures or those texts are evidence. You should keep those pictures, you should keep the text, you should go to an adult you trust, tell them what happened, and then you should take that evidence to the police. And they have techniques where they can, even if it's a spoofed email address or if it's a private number, they can find out where that message or that text or the picture came from, and they can find the person who sent it.
Okay. Welcome back, Liberty.